Hey everybody, welcome to week 3. It's during this week that we're really going to dive into the real meat of the content of this course as we start to consider the technical aspects of assessments. During last week's discussion board, I was able to read some really excellent, thoughtful questions being asked and considered. It's evident to me that even though some of you are very new to the field, you've already begun to develop a research-based, holistic view of the role of special educators and some of the tough parts too. Through your interviews, you have become more familiar with exactly which formal and informal assessments are utilized in your school or your district in the special education process. And now this week we'll build on that understanding of these assessments by exploring their reliability, validity, and overall usefulness to the special education process. If you're anything like me, those statistical terms, validity, reliability, formal, informal, qualitative, quantitative, all of those things took a while to sort of cement in my brain. So I've put together a useful package of some differentiated resources, hopefully to make that cementing process a little faster for you. If you're having trouble with those terms, I encourage you to go out into the internet world. There's tons of good stuff out there to help you really understand the differences, especially between formal and informal assessments as we move forward to our next assignment. You will have a checkpoint this week regarding those terms, so you'll want to make sure that you're ready and prepared for that. You'll also have a discussion board where you'll have the opportunity to share some of the takeaways from your interview process. If our discussion board that's wrapping up now is any indicator of how our discussion boards are going to be this semester, I can tell that these are going to be places where rich, meaningful conversations will happen. And that's not something that happens purposefully. It's something that you've really got to allow to happen in an organic way. And so I'm pleased to see that our group is such that that's already happening. The formal and informal assessments paper that's due at the end of this week is where you'll report on those technical aspects of the actual assessments that you plan to use with your students. In order to get that information, you'll need to access the manuals from the actual formal assessments. Sometimes too, you can find the information you're looking for on the publisher's website, so that's another resource for you to use. If you don't have access to any formal assessments and need to borrow from VCU's collection, send me an email so that I can hook you up with the directions on how to facilitate that process and get the materials. You'll need to pick them up from the VCU School of Education, and you'll be able to check them out for about a week. So plan your timeline carefully so that you give yourself enough time to look through the manuals and then also have the testing materials to complete the assessments, most likely during the next week. This week's assignment, the formal and informal assessments, will give you some specific information also about how to conduct the assessment and how much time to budget. So that will help you in your planning process as well. So by the end of this week, you should have a very firm understanding of which assessments you're going to use for formal and informal, and then how you might go about doing them and how much time you'll need to get that accomplished. Sometimes it's tricky to differentiate between whether a test is formal or informal. The biggest distinction between the two is whether a test is norm referenced. That's the biggest indicator, the biggest thing to look for. Even though assessments like PALS, the PALS reading assessment or the QRI reading assessment are scripted, they're not necessarily formal assessments. So those would be good examples of something that you could use for an informal assessment if you have a student who has a particular weakness in reading, okay? If you have any questions about what qualifies for formal or informal, please don't hesitate to ask. I want you to know that it's a tricky thing to kind of grasp hold of, and it's a common thing for students to struggle with while they're learning the process. As always, please continue to utilize the Ask Your Instructor tab. There were some wonderful questions that came up this week that will help me provide more clear instruction in the future. So we're getting our questions answered now and your course mates' questions, but you're also helping me to clearly define assignments and directions and so forth for future courses. So I appreciate that. I hope you have a great week, and please know that I'm here for you. Let me know if you need anything.